Although it's a good thing that people going to therapy is more acceptable, there is an issue in the type of person that thinks it's the solution to every problem. When an unhappy event happens, they say, "I'll need to unpack this with my therapist," and suppress it in their body until their next session, refusing to process anything on their own. They rely on their expert as they don't trust themselves to handle it. The problem is that their expert is often also relying on a different expert and don't trust themselves either. Therapists are not listening to intuition. Rather, they're listening to their training. They ask questions like, "How does that make you feel? What do you think is the meaning behind that?" The real question is there a better way to handle things? A therapist tries to be non-threatening, as that's what they were taught. They let the patient come to the conclusions themselves, but at the same time, they guide them to the answers that they think it is. But where the therapist is leading them may be wrong, as they're literally just thinking through the lens of what their textbooks and schooling tell them. The textbooks were written by experts, and because no one in society trusts themselves, they rely upon those experts, even though they themselves are supposed to be the expert. They put the doctrine on a pedestal and don't rely on their innate human abilities. Why is this? Because society is filled with dummies, laymen, as Epictetus would say. And those dummies aren't just in trades or bagging groceries. They're in professional areas like psychology and medicine. Lots of people, unable to admit that they are dummies, decide to try for some career to prove that they aren't dummies. And there are a lot of these people. The system can't just fail everyone either, or the whole thing would collapse. So they structure things so that if you're smart enough to memorize a book, you can pass the tests and become certified. But being able to memorize things doesn't mean you know how to think. In fact, it can often mean the opposite. But then the patient only trusts their therapist, who doesn't even trust themselves, down a line until we get to a point where no one actually graduates and becomes internally strong themselves. Therapy should be a tool for people to reveal trauma, heal, and move on. But if they don't believe this is possible, they stay reliant on this person who is also reliant on a system. This isn't to say therapy isn't helpful. It is, but it's a tool just like anything else. The therapist learned tools to deal with what you're going through. In time, you will acquire these tools as well, and you can guide yourself. So acquire the tools, but realize that you can graduate and process these things on your own. You don't need to stay in this cycle, as eventually you'll reach a point where you're solving issues that no one can even relate to. If you don't learn to handle these things for yourself, you get stuck at a certain level, unable to advance. So as Marcus Aurelius says, be your own savior while you can.